So I'd like to thank, I'd love to thank Potential Power Nutrition for coming here today. Dr. Mary Belliat and Brendan, her son, and they are the creators of this amazing product. Dr. Mary Belliat is not just a friend of mine, she's also a mentor and was pretty much all of our professor at one time in biochemistry. She knows exactly what she's talking about. I've talked to her about many protein shakes throughout the years. And she's one who has always advised me, and this is a good product, this is not a good product, don't put that into your body, and that's way better. They came up with this amazing product, which has been awesome. I've been taking it every single day. I'm excited to share it with you guys, and actually for you to ask some questions and learn a lot more about the product. To say this is a protein shake is really doing a disservice. It's about 7 supplements in one, and she'll go into explaining what that is for you guys. So they came up here all from Ithaca. So please ask as many questions as possible while they're here. Pick their brains. She likes to be challenged on things. So take it on.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for that intro.
You want to start a little bit about us?
Yeah, so I'll start on the about us. That's fine. So, like he said, we're from Ithaca. So, you know, we both went to Cornell, although about 40 years apart. So she doesn't look it, but she's almost 70. So I think that's honestly one of our selling points is she just knows what she's doing and just does it. And the biggest thing is, you know, there's no secret. It's just doing what you should be doing, following the science, and you know, it makes a huge impact. So we'll kind of go down here on this About Us page. So, you know, we're a team of idealists. You know, the whole thing is like, we had this crazy idea of just making amazing products, right? So her background is biochem, physiology, nutrition, you know, 45, almost 50 years of experience in the industry. And then my background, I did culinary, worked in fine dining for a time, went back to school, studied food science and chemistry at Cornell, got into the regulatory compliance and food safety side of things because that was what was hiring. And you know, having her being my mom, you know, had to have a job. So, you know, got into that and then had the opportunity to move into manufacturing and move into, you know, formulation. And so the last 2 years before we started this business, I was working at a really large co-manufacturing, co-packager in New Jersey, and about 40% of our business was supplements, mostly in the sports side of things. And I'd never been exposed to that. I'd always been exposed to the practitioner side of things through my mom, you know, isogenics, metagenics, standard process, all those kinds of guys, Douglas Labs, Beachbody, which Beachbody kind of does a little bit of both. But the sports side of thing, I was just blown away that the pricing was almost the same as the practitioner stuff. It was just full of filler. Like there was nothing in there, you know, it was mostly maltodextrin. It would be like 98% of the formula was maltodextrin. And it just blew my mind that people were paying for this stuff and that they're making so much money. Like it's just ridiculous. And I'm like, there's gotta be a way where, you know, you can be profitable but make a great product that's actually delivering value to the consumer rather than the consumer's buying something because, you know, there's some model on a beach with a 6-pack or an 8-pack saying, you know, do this. And so, you know, that was kind of, we took our two sides of things where I know how to manufacture things, I know how to formulate products so that, you know, the consistency is good, the flavor's good, all of that. And then, you know, and then I'll find all the suppliers and all that, and then she knows how to do the nutrition side so that it gets us where we want to go. So that kind of brings us here, you know, which is breakfast blend, right? We only have one product right now. Why did we start with just one product? You know, if you had to choose one, why this one? And, you know, so that's our number 2 question, which we put first. And the answer is because it's a product for everyone. You know, like Dr. Peshkin said, it's so much more than just a protein powder. You know, most adult Americans are protein deficient. You know, we think, oh, people are eating too much meat, this, that, but they're really not eating enough protein. You know, they might eat a lot of meat here and there in excess, you know, 4th of July, etc. But, you know, on the whole, they're usually protein deficient, specifically older folks and specifically women over 45, you know, really protein deficient. You know, osteoporosis can be really mitigated by just increasing protein. Right, because when you're protein deficient, it's going to lead to bone demineralization, you know, and that's osteoporosis. So it's like, you know, when you can fight that there. So that was why we wanted to do 24 grams, you know, because the ideal is 20 to 30, And for somebody who's on the smaller side, 24 is a really good sweet spot for that. And somebody who's bigger, you can just add more. It's always easy to add. You don't want to, really take away. And then it has all these other great things in there. It has all the essentials, vitamins and minerals. 100% of all that, of all the vitamins. And then on the mineral side, because you can actually build up too much in your body, we really try to give a balanced approach there, give the right amount, and we'll get into that. And then, we wanted to hit all the different things. So it's plant-based, it's vegan. Vegans become trendy. We're from Ithaca, where it's been around for a little bit more than the last few years. And interesting story. I actually grew up. My mom had time with me. My dad had time with me. I actually grew up eating vegan for a week at a time and eating meat the next week. And so I've been vegan and sort of off and on for my whole life. And I think it benefits certain people. I think what's really interesting is there's really good science about high-level athleticism, and when you do a pre-workout or post-workout, eating something plant-based, it's much easier on your digestion system, so it's easier in that pre-workout, post-workout recovery. So even if you eat meat, like me, I eat meat, but it's great to have that in there. And then in terms of a prebiotic, it's a great prebiotic as well, giving you that great fiber, to give you that great gut microbiome, which again, now trendy, she's been talking about for almost 30 years. But, and then we threw in some, anti-inflammatory herbs in there. So it's just, we just wanted to try and tick every single box. The low FODMAP, right, type 2 diabetes, one of the biggest health concerns in this country, and it's just growing every single year. Obesity in this country is just growing every single year. So we want to really hit that, so it does have some sugar in there, and we'll get into why that is, but it's still low glycemic index because of the fiber ratio. And the protein content there. And then in terms of taste and consistency, you guys all got to try it. If you're familiar with other vegan products in the market, chalkiness, grittiness, sandiness, this has none of that. And then in terms of taste, really mellow. A lot of products can be too intense, either too sweet, or what they'll do is they'll have a low cocoa content to save money because that's an expensive ingredient, and then they'll put in a concentrated, either natural or artificially derived sweetener, which gives it this very intense monochromatic note where it then leaves a weird aftertaste. So we don't have any of that because we just use cocoa. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, what this product's all about. Because if people aren't going to want to taste, aren't going to want to drink it, they're not going to want to take it. And compliance, as everyone knows, is the most important thing of any supplement. So number 2, why potential power nutrition, right? It's a kind of a goofy name, right? And aside from the SEO, right, or first result on Google, that's always important in 2023. But the biggest thing is everybody has the potential to be the best version of themselves they can be, right? So everybody in this room, we all have the ability to bring ourselves to that high level, and we want to help people unlock that, right? Because it can seem daunting, right? So when you have the average person who's coming in for wellness care, they feel overwhelmed. They don't even know where to start. They know they're not doing everything the right way. They know they're not going to the gym enough. They know they're not eating healthy enough, but they don't know where to start. And here's a great product that is really all-encompassing. Here's a good first solution for them. And as we develop and add more products to our product line, all of them are going to have that in mind. How does it fit into that structure of making things simpler for people and helping people to unlock their health potential and be just a better version of themselves, less pain, feel better, feel happier, feel healthier, sleep better, all these things that give people better life and better quality of life. That's what we're all about here. So that's why potential power nutrition. And then, these are kind of our 3 tenets. So it's transparency, integrity, simplicity, and basically with all of those, it's just, we are extremely transparent. We have 10 ingredients in the product. We don't put any nonsense in there. We have integrity. If anybody, first of all, everybody in our facility, everybody in our network is really qualified. We're just really interested in doing the right things. And then simplicity, keeping things really simple. That's why we have pre-measured packets. That's why we have, clear and easy messaging and all that. And then this brings, to Dr. B's bio here, starting in 1974, which, besides myself, I think a few people in this room maybe weren't even around then. And she's been interested in this since then and just kind of doing her best. I mean, she, of all the people, is such an inspiration that she constantly, every single year, tries to learn more. And so I know I'm talking for her and she's going to get talking in a minute, but it's just so amazing to see her and have her as kind of a mentor and a model where it's like there's no age where you should ever stop learning and stop trying to grow as a professional. and an expert in your field. And the second you stop doing that is when you get complacent and when, you're going to kind of go on this downward spiral. And that's why she's so young and vibrant looking and feeling great and looking great and all this great stuff, because she just keeps challenging herself and bringing her to that next level. So, and then her big thing, like a lot of people, no more capsules. I mean, how many of us that have been doing supplements for a lot of years, I grew up in it, I've been doing it my entire life since I was a little kid. You have a whole freaking cabinet, full of supplements, or one of those drawers in your fridge. I thought it was just a supplement drawer. I was like, I didn't know people kept fruit in there because it's just always full of supplements, right? And then my wife and I living together, she's just like, yeah, she was like not having it. And so that was another one of the things. One of the things that precipitated this was that she doesn't really like taking pills, and she also didn't really understand. She's like, this makes no sense. Why are you taking all these things? And then when you break it down, she's like, okay, I get that, but there's got to be a simpler way. And so we really did a deep dive, and it was like, okay, who's doing this? And we'd find products and we'd be like, okay, this product's all right, but it's missing this should be better, X, Y, Z. And then in terms of costing, and like our product's not cheap, but in terms of costing, the things that are comparable are even more expensive. So it's like, there's gotta be a better way to make a better product with more in it, that's more comprehensive, and then is at a better price point, that's more approachable for people. So that long term, they can take it every day and not feel like it's breaking the bank for them. So that's not like $6, $8, $10, $12 a day like some of these things are. And again, like which we'll get into, but when we get people where they're on a program, they're doing the subscription model and all that through our different people, including you guys, they can get that price point down to $3.50 a day. I mean, I think that's very approachable for the majority of people that are going into wellness practice. So that's really what we try to do, is especially when our next closest competitor, their lowest price point is like $4.55 a day. So for a similar product,
Do you mind if I ask who your closest competitor is?
So I would say probably our next closest competitor would be Kachava, and then AG1 are probably two, and then I would also mention Metagenics and UltraClear. So I would say UltraClear, the issue with UltraClear is a lot less protein than we have. Kachava is very similar across the board with us. The difference between us and Kachava is going to be price point, we're cheaper. It's going to be flavor, theirs is terrible. Consistency as well, theirs doesn't blend up well. But the other big thing is this idea that more is more, and that's just not true. And so they put all these plant extracts in there, and what we will see, and you guys will probably see in the consumer base, and I'm familiar from the regulatory compliance and food safety side, there's a huge focus on allergens. People don't realize, they think food safety, regulatory compliance, they think physical contamination, chemical contamination, but a lot of it is allergens and cross-contamination. And so with that, we have the 9 major ones, right, that we make sure we're free of, and Kachava's not. They have tree nuts. But the biggest thing is not putting in random things that people aren't going to encounter in their day-to-day life, that they might not even be aware that they have an irritation to, or an allergen to, or hypersensitivity to, or any of this stuff. So it can cause all these reactions. So that's why products like AG1 and Kachava, they tout it as, oh, it's amazing, it's got 100 products in it, it's got all these different extracts, oh, it's awesome. But then you'll have people having these really horrible reactions after they've been on it for a while, because they start to get an imbalance in their gut, and they're starting to get some of that sensitivity. And the other thing I would say is, a lot of the way these plants are harvested and extracted, they can have pollen residues on them that are, that doesn't have to get controlled for, that's not part of the FDA, USDA guidelines. And 30% of the population is allergic to some pollen or another. So it's just such a high risk. And so for us, it's like, unless you can really point out to that one thing and say, this is exactly why I'm putting that in here, then why would we put it in there? And it's, for them, I see it as a marketing ploy, the whole, oh, we have all these different things in here, because for the uneducated consumer, like I said, more is more. For us, one of our big core tenets is education. Because the more we educate people, the more they question, the more they ask, why am I putting this in my body? And we're going to get to that benefit section. That's the first thing we start with. Why? Because we want people questioning. We excel when people question, when people are educated, and it's these other companies that rely on marketing and hype where they excel when consumers are uneducated. And so long term, we will succeed. Short term, there's a challenge, right? Because we're not willing to say inflammatory, hyperbolic stuff that's just not true. But we, stand by the science, stand by the data, and in the end, the facts and the data will win through. So, we're here, we're making a lot of gains. It's been a long road the first year. We've, got a lot of buy-in, and the biggest thing is when people start trying it, when they see the results in their practice, through their patients, through their clients, it speaks for itself. And so that's really the main thing. But yeah, those are the 3 would be Kachava, AG1. AG1 not so much It has no protein in it, but it has all the vitamins and minerals.
That's what I was gonna ask,
So, yeah.
it's more of like a green.
Yeah, but we have all the vitamins and minerals they have, just minus the random stuff. And in
Okay.
terms of fiber, it's similar. So like their whole, oh, it's like eating plants. It's not. You know, I mean, like it's just.
So like this potential power nutrition that
Yeah.
has like the protein benefits, but
Yeah.
it also has like the benefits.
It
of,
also
like,
has all the vitamins and minerals. Yeah, exactly. So we'll get
Oh,
into
cool.
all that. So when you actually break it down, we actually have everything they have, just we don't go overboard. So like another big thing is having 500% of a certain vitamin or mineral. Like why? You know, like there's just no data to support that. In fact, the data just goes exactly the opposite direction. That when you're taking something long term, at over 200% the RDA, you are going to have negative side effects. And people just don't realize that. And it might not be in 2 days, but it will be long term. So we try to really take a balanced approach to that. So we'll get into that. So I think here, with that, that's just, and a little more about our story and sustainability. And then here's a great shot, Dr. B in front of Cornell. And then we'll go to benefits, and I'll turn it over to her. But in terms of, and that was something I didn't touch on, is the sustainability piece, is the plastic usage and all that. And that's another reason why we package the way we do, because you know those big jars, they use a lot more plastic. Even the big zipper pouches use a lot more plastic than we do with our little paper packets. So it's trying to be, you know, very transparent all the way around, really walking the walk and all that. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. B.
And so one thing I want to thank Brendan for also is I don't really know how this all works on the internet, and Brendan supervises that. And so what's great is that whatever I'm saying here, it's all on the website. And so it also plays on your phone. And so when I recommend this to a patient, I just literally go to this page. Why am I putting this in my body? So that they don't have to remember everything I said to them. And I just then text it to them. So now everybody has why am I doing it. The other thing that we have for you, can you go back to the About page?
Yeah.
Is on the About page, if you go all the way down to resources at the bottom.
Oh, no, sorry.
Right down at the bottom on resources. What we also have done is that we have a lot of info here so that you don't have to remember what I said to you. So we have videotaped a lot of this, and we have the breakdown of stuff I'm going to talk about and other podcasts I've been on if you want to listen to it or talk to other people. And so other students, and one place I really want to point out is this is safe for kids. And half of a packet is the exact RDA for both protein and vitamins for children, 3 to 11. Once they're 11, they're probably as big as me, so they can have a whole packet. And so that's kind of great. And so Dr. Erica Callahan, who has a master's in nutrition and was my first fellow when I was the dean of nutrition, she is a specialist in pediatric nutrition. Now she teaches at Campbellsville Chiropractic College and at the University of Campbellsville. And so we did a really nice podcast so that also when patients want to know, is this, why does my kid maybe need this? And if you had 2, you would just make 1 packet, split it between them, and then they're good to go. And we'll talk about it. I drink it just in water and coffee, as Dr. Larry Peshkin says. We love it in our coffee and water, but we have lots of recipes, and they're also on the website. So we'll go back to the benefits page, but I wanted to let you know that you don't have to remember everything I say. For all of you who have had me in the classroom, it gets overwhelming, and I get that. So one of the things we want to do is we were really committed to total metabolic support. And so we really didn't want over-supplementation. One of the things that I know for myself, who has done a lot of everything, as you all know, if you had me in school, I am the best I have ever been, and if you had me before, you know I look better than I used to, and that's because I was overdoing it. And now when patients come to me, I really get, when we're doing what we really need to do, which is we need to sleep 7 to 8 hours, and we need to move our bodies, whether we're, where we really need exercise, we have to do that. But we also have to do the right nutrition. And when we're trying to say total metabolic support, in all honesty, I personally meal prep 21 meals a week, as does Brendan, because that's how we roll. But that's really hard for people. And I think one of the things that we wanted to do was make sure that everybody got, you can reduce that burden by 1/3. You can add stuff to this. We're totally for that. You can put other stuff in with the shake, or you can have other things with the shake. But when you have this, 1/3 of those meal preps for the week is taken care of. And so then you're gonna have this total metabolic support and reduce your fatigue, your decision fatigue, your planning fatigue, and in that way, because we're gonna see in a minute, it reduces your cravings, you're actually probably gonna save money in the long run in your food bill, which is outrageous these days, because you're not gonna have so many non-nutritive snacky food. So what is total metabolic support? We picked a car as an example because I've had really great impact on a couple of mechanics that have been in where their bodies are better. And so we wanted to talk about it when we talk about something that all of us are really familiar with. So when you first look at a car, what you really notice is the outside. And when you look at a person, the first thing you really notice is their hair and their skin and their nails. And so why are we getting our first #1 impact is that everybody's saying all of that is better for them. And the reason is that last year a study came out where they actually made rats deficient in all the vitamins that are in this product, in the breakfast blend. And even though you have the most mitochondria in your heart, which is your energy source, and in your brain and in your muscle, what happens is your body won't give that up. And so what you do is you take it out of your skin. And so when they did the study on the rats, their hair fell out, their skin got terrible. And so that's how you know that people are nutritionally deficient, because their skin is not good, their hair is not good. So this idea that you can take one little supplement for hair, skin, and nails is just not true. That just doesn't work out. You really have to support your entire body, because otherwise your skin is going to give that up to the other organs that are more important. And so that's why this is really, really important, even though we're saying, you know, when you buy those products, oh, they have collagen, oh, they have biotin. This is in there. We didn't put collagen peptides, but collagen is made of amino acids that are in the protein that's in the pea protein. So unless you have a deficiency where you can't make collagen, you really are going to make it yourself. And in all honesty, if you take collagen peptides, you break it down anyway to the amino acids, you're going to have to remake it, so that doesn't even make sense either. So in all honesty, I'm not really sure what that's all about, okay? You just need protein, and people don't get protein. And so that's what's really important. So that was the #1 thing that we are noticing, that you can tell if you're better, if your patients are better, because of that exterior experience for them is looking better, which of course everybody likes, right? The second thing is that we really need to have a frame, and we have to have mobility. And the next thing that we're really noticing is this better post-workout recovery. What happens when you exercise, which we want everyone to do, what we want everyone when they get adjusted to not have that post-adjustment soreness, we really need to be able to recover. And to recover, what we need is structural support. And we know, those of us working in body work and doing chiropractic, we need our bones, our muscles, and our connective tissue to be great. And so that's why we did the protein. It's the #1 thing that you really need. And as Brendan said, that 20 to 30 grams is the ideal amount to digest and absorb in any one meal. And so doing that, for somebody like me, I'm doing 30 grams 3 times a day. But if you're a bigger guy, you might have to add another snack, or you might want to do a post-workout. I am having, exercising in the morning and doing the shake after that. I feel I'm really recovering really well, because you spending that when you're working out, and then you have to repair that. So that's why we put the protein in. In order for your bones to be good, you have to have calcium, you have to have your vitamin D, you have to have your vitamin K. And so that's all in there. And to make collagen, you need vitamin C. So that's why all of those things are in there, because that's going to support your bone, your cartilage, therefore your joints. And so does anybody have any questions on that part, on why we put that in there? Great. Now, how about feeling energized? It is the afternoon. This can be a real lull place for people. And for me, when I see patients in the office, I have a shake at lunch. And then I don't have that 3 o'clock dip, because now I have that energy and I can make it to 6, 7 o'clock seeing patients that we all have to do, right? And so that's been really helpful. And what do we need, as many of you know, B1, B2, B3, energy, right? And then 6, 9, 12, the methylators, it doesn't rhyme, but mitochondria, the mighty mitochondria that you have, that you got only from your mom, that is what is making energy for you. You have the highest amount in your heart, in your nervous system, and in your skeletal muscle, and we have to support that. So when you work out, you have more muscle mass. If you have more muscle mass, then you have more place for your motor. And therefore, we want to run the motor. And having adequate but the right B vitamins is super important. And having the B vitamins in the right form is critical. And so I definitely did that for this, is having it only at 100%. We want to target it. We don't want to use a machine gun approach. There's going to be collateral damage, very tough on the liver when you have high dose B vitamins, very hard on the kidney. We just wanted to do the right amount. Can you do 2 shakes a day? I've done that. 200% is no big deal, but we're kind of only there. So that's what we recommend, that if you have to do a second one, great, but mostly 1 a day, then you're always at 100% and you're going to have a lot more energy. We also made sure that we had the right minerals for energy, as well as those B vitamins, iodine so that you can have thyroid hormone, iron so that you can make hemoglobin, but not too much iron, because iron is toxic at high doses, so we are below that, so we're not in a problem. Potassium is really important. That's what you get in fruits and vegetables. This is naturally occurring because we have a plant-based product. You're supposed to eat 5 vegetables a day, or 5 fruits or vegetables. This is counting for 1, so at least you're on the way. So that's great with that. And then 80% of Americans are magnesium deficient. So we definitely put some magnesium in. You need magnesium to make energy. You need magnesium to be able to sleep at night. So people are both more energized and sleeping better. And then zinc for wound healing, and also for immune support, to make stomach acid so you can digest your protein, and selenium for antioxidation, and manganese to detoxify. So we really put everything in there. Your fuels are your carbohydrates and your fats. We put great carbs in there. If you look at the label, which is so important to teach people about how to read a label, you take carbohydrates, you divide by fiber, has to be less than 10. You look at the sugar grams, has to be less than 10. That's going to be a low glycemic index. That's going to have the right insulin response, but not too much so that you have that reactivity, or you're overloading your system. And so that's where we went with that. And also to have great insulin response, so that amino acids, that sugar gets into your muscle, so you do actually feel satisfied and you don't want to have a snack. Cinnamon is really well known for blood sugar handling, as is chromium, and so that's both in there as well. And when people say, well, it has 9 grams of sugar, when you do really low keto diet, the problem is you don't get any insulin. And without insulin, you cannot put either the sugar or the amino acids into your muscle. So when you want to build muscle mass, it's really important to have some sugar in there to get the right insulin response. And then again, this feeling of satisfaction and less snack cravings really been great for me too, right? And then you want to have enough oil and you want to maintain it. So we're really in a very inflammatory environment. There's so many toxins in the universe, right? In the earth these days. If you put anything in your body that is not food, then your liver has to deal with it. So the way the liver deals with it is it burns it. So when you burn something, that is oxidation. And we want to put the fire out, and that's what the turmeric and the ginger do. The literature on turmeric and ginger together is better than either alone, so it adds up to more than 2, and you just get a really great anti-inflammatory effect. And inflammation is the cause of cardiovascular disease and cancer and migraines and arthritis, so we wanted to do that. Additionally, the great thing about doing the turmeric and the ginger, and intriguingly the cinnamon as well, is it's really great for your microbiome. It makes a really great layer so that the good bacteria are really happy. Digest your food better, you're going to absorb it better, and so now you're going to get the benefit of eating. So now once a day, you're just really supporting your digestion and helping you so that the other meals a day that you're having, you're going to just do better with that as well. So that's really, really nice, because the #1 most prescribed drug on the market is antacids. So that's feeling very inflamed. This is going to calm it down, especially the ginger, right? Really going to make that feel so much more relaxed. And so we're seeing a lot less stomach discomfort, intestinal discomfort, and therefore we get less joint pain. Less joint pain, now I'm going to get a better result from the adjustment. I'm going to feel better when I am exercising. And patients really like to have that satisfaction of a great adjustment. And what I'm seeing and the other doctors are seeing is that when the patients are on that, that adjustment is just nice and crisp, and you really get that joint to move. They get all that relief with all the new data on how important it is to actually get that joint mobility. I think we're really going to see that happening with having that turmeric and ginger in there. And we did notice that when you detoxify the body and say you do go out at night, the next day you will have a little better recovery. So that was a little added benefit we didn't expect, but we did get a lot of reports on that. We only did 40% of the RDA of vitamin A because the data in 2003 showed that at 2 times 200% or more in susceptible individuals, that could lead to osteoporosis. But some people cannot make vitamin A from beta carotene or carrots, and so we wanted to put some in because vitamin A and E together help prevent cataracts, and so we wanted it in there, but not so much that it could lead to osteoporosis. So that was really the main idea on that.
We have, so that's kind of the benefits, right? That walks everybody through. I'll do a quick overview of the ingredients. And like we said earlier, what you won't find: proprietary blends, fillers, binders, preservatives, or ingredients you can't identify. And then what I really like about this is we have room, because there's only 10 things, to put pictures with everything so people can visualize it. Because when they see something they can identify, it just feels less scary, right? When you read a list that's like 50 ingredients long, it can be overwhelming and scary. And we don't have that here. So the first 2, organic pea protein, organic cocoa powder, organic cane sugar, our vitamin and mineral blend, guar gum, sunflower lecithin, organic ginger, organic turmeric, organic cinnamon, and stevia. And now I'll pause on the stevia because that's a question we get from a lot of different people. There's a lot of concern over anything that tastes sweet and is it nutritive, right? So something in the non-nutritive sweetener category. And this probably stems from the fact that the majority of non-nutritive sweeteners that we're familiar with, primarily sucralose, aspartame, and sulfate, potassium, are all linked to health problems, right? And they just constantly, over the last 30, 40 years, new research comes out, there's another study, more health problems, then the industry fights back and goes, oh no, you didn't do this right, and then they go another 10 years, and then there's another big study. And we just had another one, showing how bad sucralose can be. So there's this concern, because people have heard, oh, diet things are bad for you. Things that are non-nutritive that taste sweet are bad for you. And for the most part, those people are right. Now with stevia and monk fruit, those are the 2 exceptions. And I can say exceptions because the industry, these are billion-dollar pipelines where they basically they own stock in the labs that make this stuff. They have the pipeline to manufacture all this stuff, and they can just pump out the volume. So companies like Coke, Pepsi, Unilever, they're all highly motivated to discredit stevia and monk fruit, because if they can go, hey, it's all bad for you, so just pick ours over theirs because it's all problematic, but you won't get fat, right? So stevia and monk fruit never been linked to any negative health impact. They've published dozens of studies. They've tried to do it. There's virtually 0 issue. The only issue, there's two problems with monk fruit and stevia, and I'll cover them first. Monk fruit, the taste, very cloying, very fruity, kind of botanical and floral, and it can be a weird lingering aftertaste for some people. I personally think monk fruit can be great in a fruit application. In a non-fruit application, problematic from a flavor standpoint. Stevia, the 2 issues are bitterness and a metallic aftertaste. So that's what you get with stevia. Now, how we avoided that is A, by tasting a lot of different stevias, but B, there's 2 main types of stevia that are sold, Reb A and Reb M, and those are concentrations primarily of 2 different steviol glycosides, either Reb A or Reb M. And what that does is it gives you this really intense burst of sweetness, and it's less product that you have to add. So the cost is not really, because they have to concentrate, so the cost is still pretty high. But what it does is you can add less. So in certain applications, it makes sense for the companies that are using these products, but they do come with that metallic and bitter aftertaste. What we did instead is we found a company that all they do is they just concentrate the leaf. So they make juice out of the stevia leaf, they concentrate it and just dehydrate it, and then that's it. There's no additional concentration, there's no additional extraction, it's just that. And so what does that mean for us? We have to add a little bit more, the cost is a little bit higher, but then you don't get that metallic and bitter aftertaste. There is a very slight bitter note if you had our product without the cane sugar. Now the interesting thing is when you're digesting any product, when you're eating anything or drinking anything, the way all those flavors hit your tongue is actually not all at once. So when the bitter note is hitting, it's actually the same time that the sweetness aftertaste is hitting from the cane sugar. So you don't really get, and I would be surprised if anybody here got any sort of bitter afternote from that. It's pretty neutral, right? And that's what we're looking for. We want a nice, neutral, clean, crisp, sweet afternote, none of these weird bitter afternotes. So that's the only thing that some people have a little bit of an issue, because some products with stevia don't taste great, and I agree with that. I think they don't. I think our product is one of the, I think other companies have started doing this, and you'll actually see a lot of companies where they don't have sugar, they're still 0 sugar, but they're like, oh, but ours has stevia and it doesn't taste bad. The reason, it has sucralose or it has a sulfate potassium, because they do the same thing. The problem, both of them cause cancer, both of them cause problems in the liver and kidneys, and we didn't want to do that, right? The product's supposed to promote health. It's not supposed to, be 0 grams of sugar at your detriment, so that's kind of where we're going there. So that's this page here, and then the next is the nutrient guide, and I'll turn it back over to Dr. B for this section.
Did anybody have a question on the ingredients before we move on? Yeah, we really wanted to go nice and easy. Yeah, let's.
I know you offer chocolate, but
Yeah.
for those of us that prefer vanilla.
Yeah, that's a great question. So the vanilla's coming. So I apologize, we had some delays with the vanilla. The product's, it's all formulated and all that, but we haven't brought it to scale yet, so that'll be happening by the end of September. So we got a little bit of a delay, but yeah, it is coming. And it's gonna be, we're gonna adjust the vitamin and mineral blend for that one, because the cocoa has a lot of great things, and we use such a large quantity of cocoa, it's actually giving you a lot of the magnesium, different things we're gonna get into here on this page, so we're gonna have to just tweak that, but we already have that locked in. But so that'll be the only difference. Yeah, go ahead.
There was 2 ingredients I wasn't super familiar with.
Yeah.
I think they were guar gum and lecithin.
Oh,
So yeah,
lecithin.
lecithin. So yeah, I'll tackle both of those. So guar gum, so any sort of gum is going to be just a stabilizer. So essentially it's going to help you get the body that you're looking for, the mouthfeel, the thickness. Guar gum comes from guar bean seeds, so it looks a bit like, and that's why there's the picture there, so it's less scary. It looks kind of like a snow pea, and they just take those seeds, they dry them out, they grind them up. It's a totally natural product, and it thickens things, and that's really it, and people are like, oh, well, there's issues with gums and stabilizers and all that in really high quantities, yes. So if, and there's some products out there that they add really crazy amounts to. Ours, we had to add just a very small amount to just get it to the right consistency. It was already pretty thick with everything else we added to it. So we added a little bit of that. Now the lecithin, that we actually added for the choline. So lecithin is a protein found in a lot of different plants. You might be familiar with soy lecithin. It's used as an emulsifier. Sunflower lecithin is the non-allergenic version of that. Comes from sunflowers. So it's a protein that's an emulsifier, but it also is a great source of choline. And we're going to get into in a minute why we wanted choline in the product. So that brings us to this page. So that's a good question. And
How are
then,
we doing on time, Larry?
No, we're doing great.
Okay.
About 40 minutes.
Great. And then in terms of sourcing materials, that's also on there. What countries they're from, are they sustainably sourced? Are they certified fair trade? Again, we pay more for certified fair trade, we pay more for certified organic, but it's all about, having that integrity piece, that we are willing to kind of put our money where our mouth is. If we want to walk the walk, we have to really do things the right way. It's not enough to just say, hey, we have a great product. We can also say, hey, it's also free of, child labor in our supply chain. And that's a thing that a lot of companies can't say, because cocoa and sugar both, unfortunately, are the 2 highest products that are linked to, some form of human indentured servitude / slavery in the global supply chain. Something people are not always aware of. I did some work with Mars at one point, and that was something the team there, they were trying to move away from, but the problem is, unfortunately, it's just a cost thing. They would have to spend more money, and they're not willing to eat into their corporate salaries to do that. So it is what it is. But yeah, so this is our specifics page, and so we'll start with the macros.
So what's important for patients to understand is there's 2 levels of nutrition. One is called macronutrients and one is called micronutrients. So macro means that you're at the gram level. So when you look at this, you'll see the G's, that stands for grams. And when you need something at a gram amount, that's why it gets called a macronutrient. And so there's 3 main macronutrients: proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. And so we'll talk about fat first because it's at the top of the label. What happens when we look at fat is that without any fat in your diet at every single meal, you cannot actually digest your food. So this idea that fat has been vilified is erroneous. What actually happens is that you have a thing called your pancreas, which is on the left side of your body, and it has an opening, and besides making insulin for you to put sugar into your muscle and your adipose tissue, the pancreas also makes digestive enzymes. But it has an opening called the sphincter of Oddi, and it will not open unless you eat fat. And so when you eat a meal that has no fat in it, your pancreas will not release digestive enzymes. That is really a huge problem. Additionally, without any fat, you don't make this hormone that opens the sphincter called cholecystokinin. Sounds a little fancy, but it squeezes your gallbladder and makes you have bile. The importance of bile is that 1 gram of cholesterol goes out in your bile every day, and as long as you have fiber with it, your cholesterol will naturally go down when you have bile, and you'll digest your fat better. And cholecystokinin makes you feel satisfied. So that was really important that we put in fat, but we wanted to put in good fat. And so the fat is in the cocoa and the fat is in the lecithin. And so by having those 2 things that have functional components to that, because the cocoa has magnesium, the cocoa has minerals, and the cocoa tastes delicious, and it's organic, and it's great. And so it has multiple functions for us. When we make vanilla, we're going to have to add good fats to it to make up for that fat that's in the cocoa so that we have the exact same impact for your physiology and have good digestion. When we look at things like trans fats or cholesterol, it is vegan, so there is no cholesterol in it, and it is no trans fats because it's 100% natural. And so there isn't any artificial thing in there that would have a trans fat, which leads to elevated cholesterol, but it doesn't have either of those. When you look at carbohydrates, carbohydrates just means I'm from a plant. That's really the definition of carbohydrates. There's only one animal product at all that has a carbohydrate, and that is milk from mammals. And so that's the only thing. What you want to always look at is you want to look at your total carbs divided by your fiber. As long as it's less than 10, that means that that's a low glycemic index. That means that that carbohydrate is going to be slowly digested as it goes through your colon. It will not raise your blood sugar. If you have something that has like 30 grams of carbohydrate and no fiber, or 1, then the whole 30 would be sugar. That's a problem because you want your sugar grams to be less than 10. So once you take carbs divided by fiber, if it turns out to be more than 10, that means all the carbohydrates are showing up as sugar. So when people say, oh, I don't eat any sugar, but they have Italian bread, which I love, which has a lot of grams of carbohydrate but no fiber in it, that's why you could eat so much of it, then it's actually converted to sugar in your mouth by an enzyme. And so that is why it's called hidden sugar in your diet when you're looking at what's called refined carbohydrates without fiber. But that doesn't have it, and so this is a great way to teach patients how to read the labels, because it is that excess sugar that is leading to all the problems, and trying to fix that for patients is really helpful. When we look at the protein, what we see is that we really have a really nice number there, because 20 to 30 is the ideal amount of protein for each person to digest and absorb in one meal. And we picked 24 so that if you're on the smaller side, then you have it. But then we said you could add that other 6 grams by having whole wheat toast or eating some nuts with it, or having an egg, which is 6. So you can add that to this. So it's not like we're saying this is everything, this is a partial meal replacement, unless you actually are trying to do a little weight loss. It's not what we made it. We really made it for total metabolic support, but we have noticed a lot of people are doing better for losing weight because it is only 183 total calories. So you can do it as a meal replacement. It will just, because it's so complete and it does reduce your caloric intake, probably will get rid of some weight if that's what you need to do.
Yeah.
So
And it keeps people full. The fiber and the protein, we were really surprised by that with how full people were being on just this product. So for those people trying to lose weight, they've tried other shakes, they've tried XYZ things, and even though there'll be a similar calorie, they'll be like, theirs is 150, ours is 183, or theirs is 200, we're at 183, but ours is so much more filling because of the fiber and the protein content. And so those people, literally no lifestyle change, minus either breakfast or lunch, they swap this out, and it's 2 to 5 pounds a week like clockwork, and mostly fat burning. So, because all the protein helps them keep their muscle. So it's been really great for those people looking for that, and also stabilizing their insulin levels. So people who are either pre-diabetic or have type 2 diabetes, it's A, safe for them, and B, helps them get to a stable level where they aren't no longer in that position. Because that's the goal, right? With wellness care, we're trying to get people.
We're trying to get wellness care for sure. Thanks, Brendan.
So let's go.
So
Amino
then,
acids.
for the athletes especially, they care a lot about their amino acids because they know that they want those branched chain amino acids. And this does have branched chain amino acids in it. And then it also has all the things that you need to make collagen, which is the proline you can see up there, and the glycine. Every third amino acid is a glycine in collagen. So when people are like really into their collagen peptides, this is going to definitely have those amino acids in it. And then it has these other, arginine, super important for vasodilation and making creatine, actually. So it has those amino acids in there, and athletes do care a lot about that. So we wanted to make sure that you knew what amino acids were there for the athletes who are very concerned about that.
The other thing I'll point out here is it is a complete protein, so our pea protein comes from yellow peas, and some people will say, well, you can't get a complete protein unless you eat an animal source, and that's just not true. There are products out there that are vegetable source proteins that are not complete proteins, but this is a complete protein. And so a lot of companies will use like a protein blend. They'll use like rice and chia and a couple other things, but rice is a non-complete protein. So because we have this, it's a complete protein, we didn't have to do that. It also helps us with the grittiness and mouthfeel because we use a really premium quality pea, which has a great mouthfeel. So yeah, for the people who say you can't get a complete protein from a vegan source, that maybe used to be true, but it's not true anymore. And as you can see here, we do have all the essential and non-essential.
Oh, right, they're all there. Then when we look here at the vitamins, you'll see that we added 100%. So when you look at the packet, we have what we added. But then we actually figured out how much is in there when you add what's in the pea and what's in the cocoa. And when you do that, then that's what these numbers are. And when you look at everything, you see that on the vitamin A palmitate, we added only 40%, but we're over that because there are naturally occurring carotenoids in both the cocoa and the pea. So there is some beta carotene in there just because there is food in there. And when you do vitamins with food, your body does get that you're getting nutrition. So it does a better job than when you just take a vitamin pill, because it's coming with the food, it's with the meal, and your body understands that better and digests and absorbs it better. When we look at the B vitamins, the ones that people really have been asking me about is the folic acid and the B12. Folic acid and B12 together do a thing called the methylation cycle, and methylation is really important for health. And what's really important about methylation is you have to keep moving a methyl group from one to the other. So I didn't want to methylate them both. If I methylate them both, if we use our example here and just grab a cup over there, and we're both methylated, and I'm supposed to pass this back and forth, there's nowhere to pass it to, right? And so that's why I didn't methylate them both. What did I methylate? I methylated the B12, because methylcobalamin is the active form. 40% of us in this room have a gene defect called MTHFR, where we don't do the right methylation of folic acid. But Marie Cadell at Cornell, who is a colleague of mine and I know her well, she's the leading researcher in folic acid and choline metabolism in the world. And she showed that the 40% of us who have that gene defect actually methylate using choline, which is in phosphatidylcholine. And that was the reason functionally we put the sunflower lecithin in there. So that choline is not just a source of making acetylcholine, which is the most abundant neurotransmitter for your brain, for your muscle, for your nervous system, but it also is methylating that folic acid. Now what happens is when I have folic acid and B12 together, I do cell repair. I make the right size red blood cells. And so what we're noticing is people's cuts are healing faster. Like people are like, oh, I have this split in my finger, those go away because they're now doing really good cell repair. Because we have the right things to do cell division. And that's another reason that you need the methylators to make DNA so that you can actually make new cells. That's why it's great for growing kids, pregnant women. This is totally safe for them because they're growing another human, and it is the right amount of folic acid. And so we did do that for this reason. And I think we're seeing really great results. The data on methylating both folic acid and B12 is not great. Now, I haven't written this up yet, but I have a patient who has a thing called macrocytic anemia, which is a sign that you are folic acid B12 deficient. And for the last probably 10 years, I had him on a product that had them both methylated because the data wasn't out. And I couldn't get rid of it. But we switched to this, and in 3 months, his macrocytic anemia went away. So that's one case. I get that's only one, but I need to write that up because I've been struggling with that on that patient for 20 years. So I'm really excited that the brand new data played out on one person. So we got to run a bigger study on that and make sure that works. But I'm definitely seeing improvement on people's cell repair. That means they're injured, they come to you, they have low back pain, they have neck pain, they have all these things. They're gonna heal faster. They're gonna have better post-workout recovery because that takes repair. And I think that's why we're seeing such great job with repair. And then a lot of people will say, well, why didn't you put cholecalciferol in there, which is vitamin D3? And that's because this is vegan. So we put the plant source of vitamin D in, and your body can use it the same. They know that data. So I wanted to make sure it was totally vegan. If it is the winter, I would say you're going to probably have to have in the winter up here in Rochester and Ithaca, in New Jersey, you're going to have to add some more vitamin D in the winter. But for the summer, this is 100%. So I think we're going to be fine.
Another thing to point out, we talked about not putting too much, right? But you can see here, we went over 100 kind of when you count in what's naturally occurring and what we've added. The data is really clear that so long as you're staying consistently under 200%, you're not going to have any negative side effects. And specifically with things like the B vitamins, those are just water soluble, so you're just going to, excrete them and you're not going to have any toxicity buildup. The big one that we wanted to be concerned about was vitamin A, because that's one that you're going to store in your fat. And that's why we kept it at 44%. So you could even have 2 and still be under the 100% of the RDA. When you're consuming this with food, you'll never approach that 200%. And it's only over 200% that you start to become at risk for that demineralization. So we were really trying to take all that into account. And then on some of the B vitamins and some of these other vitamins here, when you're like way over, like over 500%, then you can start to come into issues. But again, like the highest one was B7 at 170. Really you're not going to see anything there. And the data, frankly, just actually shows that people can take a lot of these vitamins. There's a lot of products out there where you read the labels 2,000%,
2,000.
and some even higher. And they're actually relatively fine. I wouldn't recommend them, but nobody's going to run into problems. So certainly at this level, you're not going to run into any issues. And we have people who've been taking this product consistently daily for 12 months plus without any, only positive health impact.
Hey Doc,
Yeah.
I have a patient with macrocytic anemia as well. I'll let you know how it goes. The same thing, he has chronic pain.
Yes.
He's tried everything, injections, everything, can't, and he has pain for a very long time. So I'll let you know how it goes.
That would be so good. Yeah, no, I'm very excited about this latest development, so that's very good.
Cool.
Yeah, so here are the minerals, and you can see we put the choline here, even though choline is a fat. We just put it here because we wanted to really point out that we have that in there. That's from the phosphatidylcholine. It's also in the chocolate. So nuts, chocolate, and egg yolks are the naturally occurring choline, and some people are allergic to eggs, some people are allergic to nuts, and so we really wanted to make sure we had a product that had that. It's so essential nutrient for methylating the folic acid, for making acetylcholine, for brain function, super important. When we look at the other things, we did put the magnesium in there in a totally absorbable form. If you go to the store and you buy magnesium because you're not sleeping well or you feel really tired, and they put magnesium oxide, that's totally non-absorbable. So we wanted to make sure that every mineral was in there. So when you look at a label, when people are like, well, why should I do this? And you look, they'll be like, oh, it has all this in here, but you look at it, if it is in the oxide form, that is totally not absorbable. So they can put it in there, but it has no benefit to you at all.
That's within like one type of food, the Italian bread. So say you put the olive oil on the Italian bread and some shrimp. Does that change the glycemic index, or is it really just by one food?
Unfortunately, it does not change the glycemic index. You would have to put a lot of fiber on that. So you would have to look at the protein, and having the protein and having the fat will slow it down somewhat.
Oh, yeah. So I'm sorry, fiber. If I put a bunch of fiber on the Italian bread, does that change
It
the
will help.
overall glycemic index?
Yeah,
or not?
no, it does actually.
will
Yeah,
help. It
yeah. So
will
it
help.
depends. Like if you put a ton of greens on there,
Yeah.
then yeah, the issue is, especially bread. I love bread, so I just try to get bread with some fiber, so then that way I'm kind of starting at a better baseline. Versus the other issue with a lot of rolls, what people don't realize is just size and portion size, because they'll make it so much thicker. So like if I go to the store and I buy a loaf of bread and they slice me off some slices of toast, and I pull those out, those are only going to be 80 or 100 calories a slice, and the bread I buy is going to have 2 to 3 grams of fiber, maybe 2 to 3 grams of protein as well. Now when you buy that whole sub roll, right, or a big thing of French bread, that might have, like maybe something this size might start with 700 calories, and so that's kind of your issue right there, is you're starting from such a high point in terms of carbohydrate that to add enough fiber, like even if you did a nice bed of like arugula or spinach or something like that, it might still not bump you up enough. It might bump you, it's going to be better, but it just might not bump you to that level where it's low glycemic. It just might not be high glycemic. So maybe now you're going from something that's a high glycemic food to just kind of a moderately glycemic food instead of a low glycemic food, right?
And I'm not saying I never have Italian bread. I am not saying that. I am half Italian, I have Italian bread. So I'm not saying like you never can have it. I'm just saying I have to be cautious about that, and you're gonna have to eat a lot of salad with that. That's the bottom line, a lot of salad.
I think
a
the
lot of
other thing
vegetables.
we should all be aware of is moderation, right?
Correct.
Moderation, everything in moderation, including moderation. And I think the thing is, for a lot of these people out there, that are really trying to make this lifestyle change, it can seem really daunting, and it's better to kind of do things in a gradual way. And the other thing that we really advocate for is if somebody gets off track, because everybody slips up here and there, to not get discouraged, to not go, okay, well now, I cheated one day, I'm going to throw the whole thing out, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater and all that, and just kind of stick with the program, give yourself some grace and all of that. But
Yeah, I have to, and I think that's why the other reason we did this, right? When I know that I've had 1 out of the 3 meals, that's good. And then maybe I have a little bit off the wagon, another meal, but I know that I have the metabolism, my metabolic support that's gonna support me get through that, right? And also if my craving is less, then I'm gonna eat a couple of pieces of Italian bread, not the whole loaf. And so then I can kind of make that work, because I'm not looking for, my body isn't looking for a nutrition that it's not going to deliver. When people eat well and a balanced meal, the reason you have less cravings is because your body actually got all the nutrition that it actually wanted. And when you don't have it, that's when you feel like, oh, I need something else. You're always looking for something else. When you're rummaging around in the kitchen and you're like, oh, I just need something else, that's almost always a vitamin or mineral deficiency, or that you're missing some nutrient, protein. So when you have that, it's just such a great sign that your body is telling you. And I think that's what we're seeing, and that's why we made it, because we really wanted people to get total metabolic support. that they know that one meal a day, they've done a great job, right? And as everyone says, what exercise should you do? The exercise you will do. What meal should you eat? That one meal a day where you feel like I really got in my macro and micronutrients so that I feel I've really had a great start to my breakfast or lunch, and that I am taking care of my body. This precious thing that I'm walking around in, that I need to take care of me for the long haul. I need to take care of it. And I think I kind of say that to my patients and to my doctors in the network. Think about how we are with our pets. Think about how you are if you have a dog or a cat. You're so good to that animal, right? You make sure it has a good place to sleep, you walk it every day, and you feed it really good stuff, right? I know that because I know what the pet industry is doing. And you're spending, or some people are cooking for their dog, okay? Because they're a chef. And so their dog eats homemade food. So we're just trying to take care of our own animal body, just like it was our beloved pet. And I think that's why we made this as well, to have that for everyone. And the other things I want to point out on this is that, we really want to support the micro minerals so that when you have them, you're at the right amount. Micro means that at high dose, they can be a problem. And so we didn't want to put too much, but we wanted you to have enough so that you're making energy, you're making thyroid hormone, you're making antioxidants, and you are detoxifying your body so that we have the right amount, but not too much. So that's kind of where we went on the micro minerals, but very, very absorbable. And so they're definitely getting in and doing that function.
And then I'll point out on this slide, there's kind of three things that jump out to people, and that's the potassium, the iodine, and the sodium, and they go, well, those are all kind of low, right? So potassium's found naturally in a lot of the foods we eat. Our diet's actually not usually all that deficient in potassium, but it's super important, the potassium-sodium ratio. So we wanted that to be in the right ratio to have more potassium than sodium. So if you look at that, we had 240 milligrams of potassium to 200 milligrams of sodium. So that's good there. Sodium, we know that's probably too high in a lot of people's diets, so we're definitely not going out of our way to add a lot of sodium. And then the other one is iodine. A lot of foods are fortified with iodine, so those are kind of the three that we went on the lower side of, because those are the three that people really, if they're just eating, and there's simple fixes, like especially for potassium. I mean, bananas are so freaking inexpensive. And besides my wife, most people like bananas, so I think most people can get a banana. Sweet potatoes are really good for potassium as well. So there's a lot of easy to access foods that are pretty approachable for most diets that, are high in potassium. So for that, it was really the potassium sodium ratio for us, why we did that. And those are the lowest concentrations. And then everything else here is in pretty significant amounts. At least, to give you a good baseline, and especially when you compare, like even chromium, right, we're at only 12.5%. When you compare it to other similar multivitamins, multimineral products, they might be at 5%. So again, it's just giving you to the higher level. And then the other issue is on some of these minerals, not so much vitamins, but on some minerals, there's certain regulations on what you're allowed to add and what you can fortify with, because, maybe in the past people were putting too much in or not calculating it correctly or whatever, and there was negative impact. So that's the other reason we're trying to stay under certain levels for those.
Right,
So.
and last year a great study came out about hypertension, and they said that you want to have more potassium than sodium every day. And so as long as we're looking at that, we just get rid of that added sodium that is kind of in a lot of prepared foods, and have the potassium, like we're saying, that seems to be the thing that's working. So it's not just reducing your sodium, but making sure you have some potassium in your diet. That seems to be the #1 way to get rid of your hypertension. And we wanted to do that in this, to have more potassium than sodium.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
And then I think the last thing to just look at real quick would be the recipes. These are just fun little, we have this little blurb, right? They taste great on their own, but who doesn't want to jazz it up? And so these are some fun little things, and we have great little graphics that someone on our team made. And, the pumpkin spice, right? Can't forget that one. So, not my personal favorite, but it's on there for those. I really like the chocolate peanut butter one, and the coconut, the Black Forest cake one. That one's really good. So, this is when you have maybe more time. For me, I'm always rushing. just my go-to is water, the packet, shaker bottle, out the door, a couple slices of toast, that's my breakfast every single morning. And it hits me, it gives me 30 grams of protein, gives me about 400 calories, it's perfect to start my day. And for somebody my size, it's just the right amount, so.
Yeah, and I'll say, coffee and water, put it in the shaker bottle, shake it up, get in the car, drive to school, drive to the shop, do whatever I'm doing. I'm always in a rush myself. Although I will say one day I did do the banana split one. It is delicious. I will say. I was like, oh, it tasted like dessert. So you can do anything. We say you can put it in water. We wanted to make sure it mixed with water, and then it tasted great in just water. But you can put it in anything you want.
And in milk, it's much better. So, but there's a lot of people, who maybe they can't do dairy, maybe they don't want to support the alternate dairy because there's a lot of issues there with how those products are made and the water impact and all of that. So that was kind of, we just wanted to give options and flexibility for people, and especially you're probably never going to be anywhere in the U.S. where you're going to not have an access to clean water. So you can just grab it, have the packet. We want to make it super convenient for that, and not require any sort of refrigeration. So that was kind of
so that was kind of why we went that route. But it mixes in anything you want to put it in. So there's no right or wrong way to make it and stuff. So we do.
Unless you put it in orange juice, then you're a monster. But
That sounds awful. That sounds really bad.
No, I'm sure there's somebody out there.
There's at least one person, one psychopath.
Yeah.
We'll do tomorrow.
Yes. But
I mean, you guys were really strict on the sourcing where you got all the.
Yeah, we can go back to that page.
Where is it where is it actually packaged? And
Yeah, so that's
supply chain.
Yeah, so supply chain, yeah, exactly. So it's super critical, right? So all our products are sourced from the U.S. or Canada, so North America. That being said, some of the raw materials have to come from abroad. So specifically, with the sunflower lecithin, that's coming from Europe, with the cocoa that's coming from Africa, with the sugar that's coming from South America, and that's all on our where it's from page. But then all our suppliers have branches here in the United States that they're located, and then we have our own facility where it's all manufactured, that we control the process. So it's oh, hey, maybe, it's packaged on shared equipment, and I don't know what was on that equipment a week before, and maybe there's some contamination. No, we have total control over the process. And the reason for that is I ran a co-packaging, co-manufacturing facility for a couple of years, and I saw all that could go wrong. And when you work with these guys, there's two things. You don't have control over your timeline. So it's like you go, hey, we have a run coming up, when can we get on? 16 weeks, you don't have control of your timeline. The other thing is things can go wrong, and they're not going to care about you all that much because you're just one of their customers. Versus when you have your own facility where you warehouse, ship the product from, manufacture product, you have total control over everything. So, it just gives you a lot more control over the process, and then you can kind of guarantee that quality, and you're not having issues. Said, I don't love the transportation sector these days. Ever since Amazon got their own trucks, costs have gone up, and UPS and FedEx cares about packages less. So stuff may get destroyed on route to you guys. It doesn't happen that regularly, but it has happened. If that ever happens, and you guys order product or a customer orders product, make sure they contact us. We will always replace any damaged product. So we stand by that. It's not our fault, but that being said, we have to do the right thing, so if somebody gets something damaged, Yeah.
I know you're doing vanilla flavor.
Vanilla's coming
any
next.
Other products coming down the pipeline, as far as I've been shopping around a lot for just post-workout protein. Because I know you're talking about this would be a good protein post-workout, but let's say you've already had one.
Sure.
You don't want to overdo all the minerals.
Right, a basic one.
So a basic protein.
I know, and a bunch of people have some of my gyms. I love the gyms because the gyms are all about this. Our gyms actually do even better than our wellness practices in terms of throughput, because compared to the stuff in that sector, our product's even better and more effective. The issue it really comes down to cost for us. So when you're talking the cost of just a straight protein product versus a total support product like this, we can't, the margins just aren't as good there for us, and there's way more competition in that space. So the issue there is we can't compete against somebody who's not buying stuff by the pallet or the truckload, but they're buying everything a facility can produce, and they can get the pricing to a really low level, and the quality's maybe not that great, but they don't care because somebody's, like, oh, it's $1.80 a serving. I don't care if it's kind of inferior quality. So there are some products out there. I can turn you on to a couple, depending if you're vegan or if you do dairy. There's a company, JBN. They're a little bit cleaner. I don't love everything they do. They're probably better. Unfortunately, like, there's a company, I think, Ascent. This product sucks, but it's cheap and it's relatively clean. The issue is there's no good answers, but we can't compete in an economic way against those guys, because when they're doing stuff at such crazy volume, and a lot of them, not everybody, but some of them even have parent companies that you're not aware of, like they're owned by Pepsi or they're owned by Unilever or they're owned by Coca-Cola, and you're not even aware of that. The issue is, they can just compete at such a, they can compete and lose money and not care. And so we can't do that. So we have to, make products that, we can make money on, our practitioners can make money on, and it's tough. It sucks. I wish we could do a dairy. Our thing is all hypoallergenic, so we may do some kind of split line in the future because I have contacts in the dairy industry. I can get dairy proteins below market value and all that great stuff and make great, and I have formulated for other sports nutrition companies in the past, great dairy-based products that are really cheap, great for the consumer. I can maybe give you some cool things, or you could make your own. There's ways to just buy product. It's more and more accessible to just buy stuff in bulk and then just kind of whip it together with some. So maybe I'll even do that, here. But yeah, I would say for now, probably just go down that aisle in Wegmans or whatever your preferred grocery store is, and you can probably find something.
But you said it's safe to have up to 2 shakes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so you can definitely, do 2 of these a day. Originally we were very conservative about it, but there's so many people that have been doing 2 a day with 0 negative effects.
Including me, plenty of days.
So,
yeah.
But yeah, you can do that. But
I tested myself out first.
But the product definitely isn't, like, especially for people, we try to be approachable and cost effective. Like, I got my start, cooking and, kitchens, like you watch the Food Network and you think everybody's making tons of money, they're really not. And so I know what it's like to really be very frugal with your budget. And so we want to make things that are approachable. Like, we didn't want to say, hey, do this twice a day, for $8 a day. I think that's affordable for some people, but not everybody. So, I would just say you can definitely do it twice if you want to. But otherwise, I would try to go just down I think Wegmans even has their own brand of vegan protein powder. It's kind of chalky. You might have to doctor it up a little bit, but I think it's only about $2 a serving. So
those vegan proteins are awful though.
Yeah, right.
Awful.
They don't mix.
Yeah, they don't mix well. They're chalky. They're gritty. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, we fixed that. I mean, you just had that. That's vegan.
Yeah, it's very good.
Yeah. We have the chef to thank.
Yeah.
He is my flavor chemist.
Thank you.
Yeah.
He is actually the flavor chemist. We
Yeah.
had quite the day. You can imagine how many.
Oh yeah, years ago because this is years in the making now at this point.
At your kitchen.
When we were trying, her and my wife sitting at the table and we're trying cocos, and we're picking what cocos we're going to use because we did our own proprietary blend where we took 2 different organic cocos and in the ratio that we're happy with, but we were just going around the table trying all these different cocos to decide which ones we're going to use.
We drank a lot of different, many different.
Yeah, and a lot of different things.
Vanillas also.
Yeah.
And the vanilla, I'm the opposite. I'm not a huge vanilla fan, but we're going to use organic whole vanilla bean. It is delicious, and I do not always love vanilla. So, so.
I'm excited to try it.
Yeah, we're excited to have it come out.
And that'll be the only product that I'm aware of in the industry globally that uses only organic or just any vanilla bean and no concentrated flavors, artificial or naturally derived.
Awesome.
So yeah, I have a company that gets those from Madagascar and buys them direct from the farmers. That's great. Yeah, go ahead.
So we're starting to wrap up a little
Yeah.
bit, and I'd like to have you switch hats, Doc. Go back to your DC hat.
Yes.
And how would you, so our goal for the practice, so my goal for our practice is that we're tackling all the 3 reasons of self-fixation: environmental, emotional, and physical, right?
Right.
Physical, that's what we do daily, with our massage worker, LMTs as well. The environment in our office is very fun, and it's a fun place to be. People want to be there. We have many different personalities, as we did a personality test today. We have a whole bevy of different personalities, and so our atmosphere is very fun and energizing. environmentally, I'm looking to bring this in as a staple. Kind of removing a lot of the standard process. It's so many things. Patient compliance is very terrible because there's so many pills for the day. It's tough, as we discussed before. I would like to know how would you educate, or what do you think the best ways for my staff, from front desk, CAs, doctors, to billing, to even present this material to the patient so they're want in?
Yeah, I would say one of the things that I've been doing, and the other doctors in the network who are doing this a lot with their staff and their patients, the first thing really is when everybody on the staff, when you do it yourself, you're just going to be like, wow, this has just totally changed my life, and I want to have 21 healthy meals, but I got 7 totally handled. So that piece alone, having that one meal a day taken care of, where you're getting a multivitamin plus as much protein as a piece of chicken plus as much fiber as a piece of fruit or a cup of vegetables, that's been really helpful because people want to eat well, and that is a huge, huge issue. So I think really getting across that idea of total metabolic support for the patient, that this is going to really set them up, that they'll hold the adjustment better, that they'll have a better outcome, and that everybody gets that. I think that is really helpful for us. The second thing for the doctors and the massage therapists is people are easier to adjust. Because they're not inflamed and because they're not as exhausted, what's interesting is the adjustment goes better. So you're less tired at the end of the day and the patient's getting a better adjustment. And so that has been phenomenal for the doctors. So that's been incredibly helpful. And in terms of the billing, if you recommend it, because it is a nutritional supplement, if they have a flexible spending account, it's likely going to be covered under that. And so that is going to be great because you can write it in the note that you feel that they need nutritional support. And because we are so focused on complete metabolic support, because we have on the website the whole thing about how it's going to support your bone and your muscle in New York State, as long as we can go back to the structure, and because neuromuscular skeletally, this is exactly the right nutrition for support of the neuromusculoskeletal environment, that I think is going to be a big benefit to patients because it is really hard. And if you don't have enough protein, and what I say to my women, especially my older women, the postmenopausal women, what happens is that osteoporosis really is a protein problem, because if you think about calcium, calcium is like the wood, right? But you need a builder. And without protein, you have no builder. Without potassium, you have no builder. Without magnesium, you have no builder. So you got all this wood and no builder, so you're just not going to build good bone. So I think when you're talking about women in particular, as they age and aging really healthily, this was just going to be so important for them to have mobility. And one of the great tests that you can do, and they found this out, is there's 2 tests that are excellent at talking about all form mortality and not more, but morbidity, right? So people are not well, and that is the get up and go test and being able to stand on one foot. And so if people can stand on one foot, so you ask everybody, can you stand on one foot? Can you stand on one foot for what's called swing phase? That's how you're not going to fall. That takes protein and good bone structure and energy. And so who doesn't want to not fall as they age? This is going to support them. So I think that this, we're saying this is total metabolic support. We want everyone to do it. We're trying to help everybody, but we're really doing it for the patient, for our own wellness. We want to make sure that people are not going to have more injury, that they recover better. And I can absolutely say, I'm not, the last person coming in is getting the same great adjustment from me as the first person, because I'm not exhausted and they're not inflamed. So I think that makes everybody better in the office.
I'm gonna, like, she always goes like super high level. I'm gonna like really dumb it down for a hot second for everybody. So basically, like, what I tell people is, other companies out there, usually motivated by three things, other supplement and nutrition companies out in the space, and those three things are money, money, and money. And that's just so not us. We're really patient-centered, outcome-centered, and it's all about the science, it's all about the measurable outcomes, and it's all about the transparency and effectiveness. And so when you tell somebody who's curious and they go, okay, I'm paying a little bit more, this isn't a cheap product, it's like, okay, well, look at why it's not cheap. They're using only the highest level stuff, they only transparency in their supply chain, total control there, and then the fact that they're just really trying to give you the best value in terms of packing as much stuff in as they can. And then, in terms of the podcasting and all the outreach and all the educational aspect, it's just really trying to bring people into the fold and educate them so that they know more. So I would just say that we're doing, we're kind of being very open and transparent about how we do things and doing things in a really ethical manner, and that it's all about effectiveness and you don't have to believe in the product. That's the biggest thing. I would say there's a lot of companies out there, SP in particular. I mean, I grew up in the SP family where it's almost like a cult, and you have to really believe in some of these products for them to work, because they don't. It's got a bunch of Brussels sprouts and some other random stuff in there. And why is that? Because their farm grows a lot of Brussels sprouts. But, so
You've been to the farm.
I've been to the farm, yeah. So I would just say, you don't have to believe in the product for it to work. We give it to people who are skeptical all the time and they have great benefit. Some of these high-level athletes, they're the most skeptical people, and when they take the product and they're like, I expected nothing, I was really blown away that I was getting better recovery, less joint pain, especially with my basketball players and people like that. And I do a lot of the outreach to the sports side of things, so I'm working with coaches, I'm working with people in the sports clinics and things like that. You guys do a little bit of both, which is awesome. I think that's where you see a lot of great outcomes. But I would just say, the company's very transparent, they're very honest, we have a direct line of communication. If you have any problem as the patient, as the client, as the consumer, they will immediately handle it. I had a customer call, contact us through our form, they had an issue, we handled it personally, we got it resolved to the point where they felt so good, they're like, I'm gonna tell everybody about this, it's just a level of service that you just don't see anymore in 2023, where everybody's trying to automate everything. You got AI running their chat interactions, all this stuff. How can we reduce costs and save? And for us, it's just, this is not, if this was a financial play, we would have quit a long time ago. This is so emotionally driven. This is so, driven by our love of nutrition and wellness, and that we want to elevate the space in the industry. And I certainly would love to come out with a product that's just protein down the line, once we can scale and get to a point where we can be cost effective. But we have investors and we have other people that we are accountable to. So.
Yes, we do have that.
Yeah.
There's 1,000 different companies, and I'm like, okay, what doesn't taste like shit?
Yeah.
It's gonna work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And doesn't have and there's endless amounts of reading you can do,
Yeah.
and someone's just gonna be like, they put a bunch of crappy fillers in it, it doesn't work that well.
Well, that's why I said, for the just straight protein, if you're going with a vegan, if you're going with a dairy, there's better dairy options out there. But for vegan, especially you guys being in a place where you have a Wegmans, I was actually surprised there. I think, because I'm a very cost per unit kind of guy, because again, I started out making no money, so I never got that out of my system. So I'm always trying to be, as inexpensive, especially if I'm doing something that's just for me and not for my household, right? So before we had this product, for a number of years I was doing the Wegmans one. It doesn't taste good, but it tastes better than some of them, and it's pretty cheap overall, and it's very clean. So
You're
it does.
selling it.
Yeah, I know. Well, I mean,
It does not
it's
taste good.
there's look there when you're talking just basic proteins that are vegan in the marketplace. There's no good options that are inexpensive or affordable. And the reason Wegmans is better is because they don't have to share the profits, right? Because they're the distributor and the manufacturer. Well, they're probably getting a co-man for them, but they're kind of the point of sale and then that distributor. So they're the retailer and distributor. So they're cutting out that. So they're making a higher profit margin, but you're also getting at a lower cost point. So I would say any store brand. It doesn't have to be them. It could be Costco. I think Walmart has a store brand. I mean, if you want to support Walmart, there's some issues there with some of the business practices.
I haven't been to Walmart in like a decade.
Yeah, I know. But anyway, I would just say, so store brand stuff, and then down the line we'd certainly do that. And then we have a product that'll be coming out next, but we have to get more traction with this product first. But that's a stimulant and neurological support product. I don't like the term nootropic because it's nonsense. But in terms, there's a real thing there. I just don't like it. There's a lot of hype. People don't understand it. If you say it helps brain function, people kind of understand that, memory, cognition, and all that kind of stuff. So we have that, it exists, it's a real product. I might give Dr. Peshkin a sample so he can kind of pass it
I
on
have
to you.
the.
Oh, you had some of the brain boost?
The energy one?
Yeah.
Dr. Phillips I had,
Yeah.
Dr. Phillips was up.
Yeah, I was up to like 2.
Oh, were you too energized?
I had it at
Yeah.
like 4:30.
Oh, didn't I tell him not to take it late in the afternoon?
Yeah.
Yeah. People don't believe me, they're like, there's only 80 milligrams of caffeine in
So
that, but it just, yeah.
I had that too.
Yeah.
I had like a flashback to the Sobe green tea. I think you're too young for that.
No, I had that growing up,
Okay.
yeah, I really like that, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
I
good
was
stuff.
like-
I didn't have
I
the
was
green
like,
tea
oh my
one, but
God.
I like the Sobe products,
Yeah.
yeah.
The lizard.
Yeah, the lizard, whatever happened to that brand? Did they just
I
close?
asked one of these young kids, and they're like, "What are you talking about?" And I'm like, "Oh,
No, I like the white one, it was like a pina colada
Yes.
one, that was my favorite, yeah.
That
I
the
loved it.
pink one.
The pink one was good too, yeah, see, we all remember it. I was just a little younger,
It
yeah.
disappeared. I
Yeah,
remember taking Brooks Fuel when I was a kid, GNC.
Yeah, there you go,
That made me jump through walls. I
yeah.
have a quick question, you know, so what we're doing now in our office is every new patient's gonna get a sample.
Sure.
Every single new patient's
Yeah.
gonna get a sample to talk about it. From your experience,
If you're an athlete, if you're going to the gym, you notice a difference right away. So even if you're younger, because that post-recovery, that little extra energy really does make a difference. So, you know, we really are saying people should do it every day because this is doing that for them. And I think after one box, doing it every single day, you're gonna really notice it.
Day 5 to 7 is your, to
Sweet
answer your
spot.
question. Yeah, that's a sweet spot. But if you're giving a sample of just one, what we recommend is like, it's great to give somebody an idea that doesn't taste bad. You know, like that's kind of the thing. And then the whole thing is that they should trust you guys as the professionals, you know, that, hey, I'm recommending this. I have access, you know, Google gave me access to everything. I could find anything for you. This is the one I'm endorsing, you know, so you should give it a shot. Here's a sample to make sure you're willing to drink it. You know, the taste is good, it's convenient, and then from there, day 5 to 7, they should start noticing a difference. Usually for most people, it's gonna be some sort of joint pain clearing up and sleeping better, you know, and then more energy in the morning. So, and so that's kind of what most people notice. There's other things for specific people, anybody with IBS, that'll start clearing up as well. But, you know, it's going to kind of vary based on the person, but sleeping better, less joint pain, that's kind of universal for most people.
And I will say this, for postmenopausal women who are really having issues with their hair, totally clears up. And that I have, you know, my patients have been with me over 35 years, so we're all older, and I think that had a massive impact for us. Like, we were like, that is really great. And that took a couple boxes, but it was
Yeah,
so noticeable.
some of the other stuff takes
My
a
hairdresser sells it in her office, because it made that much difference.
oh wow.
Because she's always sold some protein in the salon, and she's like, this is amazing.
Yeah, some of our like wellness spas and the medi spas, those things,
They
they're starting to
sell
get into it for that,
right,
for the
because
hair,
it
skin, and
has-
nails, because
yeah,
it's more
because
effective.
It's really made a difference, and I think that really has helped out.
But yeah, day 5, the first week. Basically, what I say to everybody is, give it a try for at least a week. You should notice 1 or 2 differences, and then the longer you stay on it, the more you're going to start to notice a difference. The other thing is, most people long term, it's somewhere, I would say between 4 and 8 weeks, they start to notice they've lost weight around their midsection. You know,
Yes.
meaning like going down to belt size, which is really big for a lot of people. And that's really everybody. So you don't have to be that big a person to lose that. And the reason for that is we seem to be upregulating your thyroid and your endocrine system, and you seem to, when that's sluggish, just carry a little extra weight there right around your midsection. And when we upregulate that, you don't lose it all. You're not going to get a 6-pack just from drinking this, but you are going to lose that extra that you're carrying. So, you know, like I went down to belt size, she went down to belt size. We
Well,
weren't
way
that big
more
to
than
begin
that
with.
for me, 'cause
Well,
I-
you lost more weight, but yeah, I would say, yeah, it just helps with that. But yeah, 1 week, and then we should mention, it's uncommon, like less than 1 or 2%, but some people with underlying, what is it? It's
So the one thing, because I have a lot of doctors in the network, so it was kind of good that it happened to doctors. So what happened is, if you have an underlying intestinal yeast, or you have SIBO that you don't know that you have, because this is probably one of the best prebiotics out there, if people start to have a lot of intestinal discomfort, they really should get checked. And so we have unexpectedly had patients who didn't know what was wrong with them, then have symptoms, and they called me, and I'm like, this is really interesting, you should go get checked. And so we had a couple people with SIBO, which is small intestinal bowel overgrowth. That has to be treated medically, and so they have to go to the medical doctor. I'm a big fan, take that care of that. Once that got taken care of, and they got over that, then they were like, oh, I didn't even realize I wasn't feeling good until I did this, and then I realized that's what was wrong, and then they could go back to doing the shake. If they had yeast, then you can sometimes mitigate that with a product that just gets rid of the yeast, and they gotta cut back on sugar, or go see a functional nutritionist or somebody that's gonna help them get over that. So somebody who has that, then that has come up, but it hasn't been very common, but everybody calls me. And then I'm like, what's going on, what's happening, and then we send them to get checked.
So like a product like Candex, if you guys are familiar
Candex
with,
is
or something like
great
that.
for
Sometimes like if you have somebody who's, all of a sudden they're developing like a lot of, flatulence, like some issues, like they don't have IBS, but it's stuff like that. Sometimes we'll tell the doctor, just start them on Candex, and if that doesn't clear up, then they gotta see the medical doctor, because a bottle of Candex is like $20.
Okay.
So, and it's totally safe to consume. It's just, all it is
It's
enzymes that just break down yeast. So it just kills a yeast overgrowth.
Awesome.
But this product seems to diagnose that. So it doesn't cause that, but for those people with the underlying issue, it seems to diagnose it.
Yeah, that's what we noticed by just happening to do that. So if that happens, then you want to get right on that and treat that patient and get them treated.
Awesome. Does anyone else have any questions? Well, guys, thank you
Thank
so
you guys for
much.
your
It's been
patience.
awesome. It's been a solid hour 45.
Yeah, we're checking it out. Yeah, thanks.
No, it's been perfect.